come, we have to fix the situation with the stream key seems not to be working. I sent it him direct. I'm going to send it into the room again. Give me 1 second, please, and we'll be right with you. We have a very interesting narrative tonight that DMAC is going to present, and we want to make sure that he's able to get on and give us the information that he has already planned for us to take it to that next level. I'm excited because we're going to deal with the issue of mental health in sports and also mental health in the community. I think that's something that's very necessary to talk about because it feels the perspective of it. And what it will do, it will kill a lot of misnomers because it will do. Okay, yeah, okay, there you go.
All right,
Okay,
my brother.
okay. Oh no, bro. Top of the evening to you, Doc.
Man, how you doing, my brother? God bless you, man.
Bless you also, sir. How you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. I'm getting better. Getting there,
That's
getting there.
that's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. So what I'm gonna do now, team? I'm gonna introduce you to our co-host DMAC, and he's gonna start off and give us the information that's necessary for those things that we need to know in regards to mental health. Go ahead, DMAC.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you, Big J. Let's talk about it, man. Um, Mental health really hits me in a soft spot whenever I hear any mental health issues that relates to anybody. It touches me in a personal way because I'm a veteran, a combat veteran. I went to Basra, Iraq in 2010, 2011, Operation New Dawn. And when I came back home, I started to experience some depression, PTSD, a lot of these things that encompasses um, going to war. But I looked into it a little bit more, and after what happened with Naomi Osaka, that really shined a light on what it was doing in the sports arena. So I wanted to talk today about Naomi Osaka because she stepped down from the French Open, and it was because she was experiencing some mental health issues. And instead of getting the support that she needed, they threatened to there she go. And they threatened to fine her $15,000 if she didn't come and speak to the press. And she explained to them what was going on, and they gave her that response, and I guess she didn't like it, and she ended up pulling out, which I feel like is one of the strongest things to do, because here you have one of the top players in the world. This is no small thing. The French Open is not a small tournament, and she felt something within herself to have the courage to say, I need some help. I need to stop what I love, what I've been doing all of my life, so that I can get myself right and
Wow,
I can become more healthy. And
wow.
I felt like she was so powerful in doing that. And it opens up a conversation. What is these sporting agency or sporting organizations doing as far as mental health for the athletes?
Facts.
Now,
Yes,
Antonio
facts.
Brown, and we all saw the hit that he took to the head to cause his traumatic brain injury. And after that hit, Antonio Brown was not acting the same anymore. His speech became kind of slurred. That was one of the first things that I picked up on. His speech kind of started dragging, and that's one of the telltale signs that he had some brain injury.
Right.
But
Facts.
instead, they ridiculed this man.
Yes.
They demonized this man, and they got entertainment and views off of this man for as long as they could, and made him the butt of the jokes
Wow.
because they thought he was done.
Right.
But because of this man, who he is, and the character that he has, he's fought his way back. And I commend him on that, because going through depression and going through any type of injury to the head, or any mind issue is hard. It's hard because people don't see it. It's not one of those visible scars that you can be like, oh, and determine how bad that person is hurt. This is
Facts.
an internal scar that when you see the outward effects of it, you don't really understand it unless you've experienced it. And so there's been many athletes that have shown this on the big playing field. You know, they couldn't keep it private anymore. You remember the when Oliver McCall and Lennox Lewis fought,
Exactly. Yes.
and everybody saw Oliver McCall break down in the ring.
Yes.
And I remember they were asking, well, the commentators were saying Mills Lane need to step in and do something. Well, he was telling Oliver, "Hey, Oliver, you got to fight." But the man was going through something, and he wasn't trying to hear none of that. And at the same time, George Foreman said people didn't pay their money to come and see this.
Right.
And I was like, "Wow, really? That's what you're getting out of all of this?" Apparently, obviously, something is wrong. Something is really wrong because once again, this man has dedicated his life to this sport, and in the midst of a fight, he's just gonna stop and start crying.
Yeah.
There's
Facts.
something really wrong with that man, but nobody took that into consideration.
And D Mac, the thing with that is too, sir, and you're right because you remember Junior Seau, Seau.
Absolutely, my best friend's brother, Natron Means, played with him. Yeah.
Okay, right. So then we understand that people are crying out for help, and what people in this society do, they tease, they talk about, they make fun of, and it's really bad, man. That's why I agree with what you're saying. Junior Seau never came out and committed suicide.
hmm and that's the biggest thing because there's a stigma that goes with mental health issues. I remember in the military, you would be looked over for promotion if you went to mental health.
Oh,
You know, and
really?
so a lot of soldiers would not go and really talk about what was going on with them because they know that that would impede their progress as far as getting promotions. And
Wow.
the same thing in sports. Whenever people see you have mental health issues, they shy away from you. They called you damaged goods. Hey, how
Wow.
you doing, Markrina?
Hey, Marquita.
And so, you know, we were talking earlier, and you was talking about Kevin Love.
Right.
Um, I saw some of that, man, and they gotta understand that these people have their own issues too. They have their own issues. I know with me, whenever I go through my bouts of depression, isolation is one of the biggest things.
Yes, sir.
And so I understand what Naomi Osaka is talking about when she says she can't get up in front of the press and she has social anxiety and things like that. I understand that because I get in those moods myself, and it take me about probably about good 3 or 4 days to shake it off.
Right.
You know, and that's with people that admitting to that they have a problem, but there's people out here who don't even know because they haven't been properly diagnosed, because we as black people do not like to go to therapy or counseling and stuff like that, and so we go undiagnosed with stuff for so long, and we grow up in bad neighborhoods and we have PTSD from some of the things we see in these neighborhoods, and it never gets diagnosed.
Yes, and it never goes away. Let me say this, D Mac. One of the biggest things too. Also, you talked about separation and isolation.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of non-trust. See,
Yeah.
see, see. Mental health comes on several levels. If an individuals have been abused or scarred from bad relationships or other folk, to me, there are no physical scars, but the mental aspect of what has happened to that person, it can never be reversed. And there's a sense of I don't trust anybody. I've heard it,
Mhm.
seen it, and witnessed it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a part of it. I know, just with me personally, I have a hard time with trust, and that's just, uh, I could blame it on a lot of different things, but I was, I attribute it to before my military service. I dealt with situations in my life that brought me a certain level of PTSD, and that was way before I went in the military. So I can't say it's all military, it's all war. I can say that aggravated or agitated what was already there. So we have to look closely at people around us and things that's going on, because you'll never know. You never
Right.
know. Person could be sitting there struggling and put on such a good facade that
Facts.
you'll never know until something big happens and they end up, doing something or anything like that. I remember a wrestler named Chris Benoit. Do you remember Chris
Chris
Benoit?
Bennett, yes, sir. Yes, yes, yes.
Chris Benoit, great wrestler. He was definitely going to go down in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. This man, for whatever reasons, he murdered his whole family and killed himself. That's powerful. What is going on in your life to make you feel like you don't want you or your family to be here anymore? What is that bad? And that goes back to when I was going through therapy. My therapist would always talk about my
Right,
perception of things, because my perception was very dark, and that
right.
was based on my service and things that I witnessed in Iraq. Um, but I had to change my perception, and that's been the biggest struggle. That's also been the biggest reward, though.
But you know what? And the first thing they say, how do you know? I can't stand that.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you say, this is how I know. Because internally, you know what you feel, no matter
Yeah.
what anyone says, and that's what they keep because they want you to change your narrative. How do you know? What did you do after you come out of it? Was it there? Did you prove it? And that's the biggest thing, man. Even on YouTube, watch this. I hate to go back here again. I'm gonna be quiet so you can finish.
Mhm.
Kwame Brown. I'm not trying to diagnose him, but while he was going on his over and over and over videos, and what
Yeah.
those people don't understand, they were abusing his mind.
Yes, absolutely.
They were abusing his mind. He might not feel it, but guess what? There was some things starting to change in him, and you could see it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what it is. Is we internalize it, and it bothers us so much that it comes out. It's going to manifest in an outward action or outward behavior. So, especially if you're an introvert like I am,
Right,
you hold things in, and it's like shaking up a soda can and then
right.
popping the top.
Yeah,
You can't do that. Well, they advise you not to do that. They say it's not healthy to do those types of things. But you know, this whole mental health field is still pretty new.
right. Facts.
They're discovering some things about mental health that it don't fit everybody, because my PTSD and somebody else's PTSD is not the same,
Facts.
because we have different experiences in life and we have different perceptions of reality.
Right.
Our PTSD is not going to be exactly the same, and they always try to group everybody in the same group when it comes to these things. So they're still working out what mental health is, because they really, really just started paying attention. And I was wondering, it brought up a question to hold up. Let me see what Marina. She said sometimes we go through a situation from small, we grow up bottling that scenario and never put out. So in time, it's just bad.
Speak,
Absolutely.
sister.
Absolutely, 100%. And there's things from our childhood that we deal with as an adult. A lot of us,
Facts.
especially if we do go to therapy, we're going to find that a lot of the issues that we deal with as an adult came from our childhood.
Facts. And that's the sad thing, D, is that people in this country are so insensitive and they're so geared on hurting other people. When you
Yeah.
really don't know what a person has been through, as Macrina said, what they're going through, every situation is not perfect. Every situation is not in place. Like you said, there's some people they're not trying to hide it, but yet they have to because if they don't, they can't get a job. And then once you find an ignorant person who finds out, then now you have the quote unquote teaser, or you have the one
Mhm.
who has to let everybody know. So then you end up going through this psychological path of misunderstanding to where you can't talk to anybody.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my biggest issue, talking to somebody, because when I first came home, you know, I didn't notice anything right away. You know, I came home, I was focused on trying to reconnect with my family, trying to reintegrate into the family and what was going on here at home. Those are my focuses. So I didn't really notice anything. Um, my wife started pointing things out to me as far as like my quick temper, because I was always really laid back and never snap, and maintained a calm demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more snappy, and that was like the first thing that she noticed. Then over time, it just started to progress. And so as it progressed, then I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this PTSD thing, because I didn't really, I thought it was for weak people. That's truly what I thought. Oh man, I ain't got no PTSD. Weak-minded people deal with that. No, no, it attacks anybody.
Right.
And as I went through it, and as I started to recognize that, okay, I'm not the same guy anymore, then those outward things started happening. Well, I was holding stuff in, and then whenever I started to act out, I was like, okay, this is not me, and I had to get some help. That was the hardest thing I had to do, but it was the best thing that I ever did. So I hope Naomi Osaka gets the help that she deserves, because we all need it at some point in our life. I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you think you are. We all need help at some point, because some things you just can't go through alone.
That's right.
And Martina says, I am a person. When I get overwhelmed, I close up. And yes,
Facts.
man, we do. Some of us do. Introverted people mostly, we close up. Um, but yeah, Naomi Osaka, there's been a lot of support, and this is my issue with that. Nike came out in support for her before the French Open and the rest of the tennis organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they only came out in support of her because of the backlash that they got over the weekend for how they treated her and disregarded her issue. And how many more people are they doing like this?
Right. Facts. Because here's the reality, man. I was just watching something on Malcolm X called the bullet or the ballot. We are living
Mm,
in a situation to where this economy and this world is messed up. A lot of folks don't realize some of these things have been passed down through slavery. Do we understand what slaves went through? Do we understood what those individuals went through on a daily basis to where they became paranoia, schizophrenia by what was happening to them? And that's
yeah.
in their gene pool, not just the DNA. The message is stored in the RNA. So now, when you get two people who come together, what if those individuals is in their DNA both have the same thing, or one has it and one doesn't?
Wow.
So now one is an
Wow.
empath, and one is bipolar.
Yeah.
Whew.
That's deep. It's very deep and very heavy. Marquina says, I find some of these athletes want to be themselves but can't because of public pressure. Absolutely, Marquina. That's exactly what Kwame Brown has been saying. That's the point that he's been proving with all of these guys. They can't be themselves because they've been bought.
Yep.
They've been bought at a price,
Yep.
and they can't do what they want. They can't say what they want. They can't go out and go just do the things that the average person does.
Do
They're
we?
under contracts, and they have all of these obligations that are holding them to a certain level of a certain standard of behavior, I should say.
Facts. Do we understand what pressure it really is? And I think you, myself, and Macrina are saying the same thing. And I don't think a lot of people even know it. Like I asked my mom one time, Mom, why did we move on this side of town? I'm not that type of kid. I got to fight to go outside. That's not me. I got to fight to go to school. I got to fight to go to church. There's somebody who want to jump on you as you're going to church. So people don't understand these things go along with you in life. Then if you have a parent or parents or one parent who doesn't understand, and like some parents to kids that I hear them, you ain't gonna never be nothing. You just like your daddy. La 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 la. La, la. Guess what that does to that kid's mind over time? Man, I ain't gonna never be nothing. I'm just like my daddy. My daddy was an alcoholic. I'm gonna be an alcoholic. My daddy beat his wife. I'm gonna beat my wife. Hmm.
Yeah, yep. And those words are, people say sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. That's very misleading. That's
And
very misleading because words have destroyed some people.
yes, yes.
Um,
I turned it up,
bullying,
Marcorina.
yeah, bullying is at an all-time high right now. And those words that those kids say to those other kids oftentimes cause those kids to commit suicide.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
So whenever
Facts.
I hear that term, I disregard that because words hurt. They hurt really bad. And we don't know the scars that people carry because of these words that have been spoken to them. Without regard, because people feel like if somebody's in a certain level or in a certain field, that they just have to take your crap. You
Facts.
with what's going on right now in the NBA, they're starting to let people back into the games, and these people don't know how to act. I don't know if it's been because they've been in the house too long and they had cabin fever and they're just excited to be back out. But now that they're letting the fans back in, they're acting up, they're acting a fool. And they feel like that they have an entitlement to do so because they pay to come to those games, but you are not entitled to treating somebody indecent and not like a human, you
D
know.
Mac.
So yeah.
D Mac. I've been doing some research, and the more you talk to me, you're gonna understand why I say I've been doing some research. There are two group of people. There's a group of people to where the mind, within the structure of the frontal cortex,
Hmm.
those individuals are barely making it, but they can make it.
Yeah.
But then there's a person who has been abused themselves, and they become an abuser, and they don't understand that you're at a position or a place to where you can use your mind, because the damage to the frontal cortex, which is the place in the position that we feel things, sex, drugs, alcohol, it is the same place to where the mind, when it shoots off those neurons and things are not firing right. There was a doctor by the name of Dr. Amen.
Hmm.
And Dr. Amen said people have holes in their brain from abuse or mental health from what other people
Hmm.
have done to them. And what the medication does, it only closes the holes. But when the medicine wears off, the holes come back.
Wow. Wow. So I mean, what can really be done other than a changing of the mind? And the word always speaks about a changing of the mind,
Well,
because that's really the only thing that's going to bring you to a place of peace, is a changing of your mind in that situation.
and
Mental health is all about mind. It's all about the head. You can't run for it. You can't exercise. They can't. Well, they'll try to give you a medication for it, but most of those medications don't work. I'm here to tell you, I have about 9 medications, and one is to offset the side effects for the other, and so it gets to be a heavy load. And so I take that into consideration as well when going back to Naomi Osaka, because if she's really dealing with depression on that level, she has to be taking a medication for it. And who knows what the side effects of that medication is and how it makes her feel.
do you know that there are several NFL players, because of the concussion rule, are now, see, this is what I'm saying. Mental health is just not a situation to where individuals are growing up with this issue.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah,
onset of something,
yeah.
concussions, abuse, all these things. That's why now with the law, if anyone is found out to be controlled by a abuser, which uses something called coercive control, that's where they deal with your money, they deal with your self-esteem, they tear you down, they rip you apart. Why? To control you. That is illegal now in most states, and those individuals who do that can be convicted of a felony. So there's a lot of things changing that the world doesn't know about. That's why I'm
Yeah.
saying these guys talking about Kwame Brown and talking about people, if they only knew what could happen. Go ahead, D. I'm sorry.
No, you good, because that's absolutely a great point. Kwame Brown has been through so much stress. He's been through, um, 20 years of people just picking at him and people making him the butt of their jokes. How do you think that makes that man feel? And now that he's showing his feelings from all of these years of buildup, people don't want to see the point. People have a really bad they have a bad time seeing the point in something. They get so overshadowed by the entertainment of it that they don't get the point. They miss the whole point of it. And I see through all of the anger and everything that he's saying, and I see the mental health issues that's right there. Anybody that deals with PTSD, or anybody who deals with depression and stuff like that, they'll see it.
Yeah, see, Marquina and D Mac. This is what I was saying on my video the other day about Kobe Bryant and Kwame Brown with Matt Barnes. I wasn't talking about the actual fighting or what Matt Barnes was doing. I was trying to show you the disparity between two people and their mindset. He gave
Yeah.
Kwame Brown a blow to the back. Kwame just walked away, but
Yeah.
he gave Kobe, tried to give Kobe one, and what did Kobe do? Kobe gave him one under the chin. Then he tried to
Yeah.
throw the ball in Kobe's face. Kobe like, whatever. So it just shows you right there. There is a disparity to the mind makeup of every man in this world. But if we judge every man wrong, then we're in trouble. Because watch this. Matt Barnes, when he went up, he invited Kobe to his male parts too. But Kobe dealt
Yeah.
with it a whole different way. Where anybody else whose mind is not intact, guess what they would have did?
What Kwame Brown did. But yeah, man, and that goes back to the Kevin Love, the whole Kevin Love point. When Kevin Love started breaking down and having his issues, they demonized that guy. You know, they well, you make so much money, you ought to be
Yes.
able to do this, but money doesn't cure everything. Money doesn't make everything better. Steve Jobs died. I'm pretty sure if he would have been able to buy some more time, he would have, but money does not buy everything.
That's
And
right.
that's what people have to understand. This man has some health issues. He has some obvious mental health issues that's starting to come out, and they need to address it before it gets to a point to where, you know, they lose a lot of money because they lose a player for doing something crazy. You know,
Facts.
we see it in the NFL all the time. Let's see. Marquina says people use assertions to get at your weak points. Absolutely. And you know, goes back to Antonio Brown. You know, they were saying, what's going on with him? Why is he making these decisions? But we sat there and watched this man get hit right in his head. It was a dirty hit, and it knocked him unconscious. And that brother woke up a different person. He woke up a different person, man. And but instead of focusing on that, they missed the point again and just started to talk about his actions and what he was doing off the field, and you know, um they started to punish him for it. You know, instead of seeing what's wrong, what's going on, they started to fine him and take his money, and ultimately had him off the field, and he was about to retire until Tom Brady said, I want to bring him back.
That's the dehumane thing about this country, man. People don't care unless it's happening to them. Do you know how many undiagnosed people are walking around, or people who are taking the wrong medicine that are causing other people? I don't cuss. So who are causing other people harm? Do
Yeah.
we understand that? Because there's.
or
Go ahead.
or they're self-medicating. Self-medicating is one of the biggest issues in mental health, because like I was saying, I take a lot of medication, and a lot of people get tired of taking all of that medication, and they'll start to self-medicate because they don't want to take all of those pills, man. And this is what uh, exacerbates the problem.
But D, this is where we get, like I said, I do a lot of studying. You'll see, this is where we get the dark triad, and you get
Yeah,
those factors that deal with sadism. You get those
yeah,
factors that deals with psychopathy. You get those
yeah,
factors that deal with narcissism, and these are things that you can't see, and they're very hidden. And that's what Marquina just said, is that Most people don't know. And for you to try to describe where you are or what you're going through, if it's not the right person, guess what would happen?
There
You
you
are
go.
crazy. Something wrong with you. I
Yep.
don't see that. So guess what this does now? It puts an entirely different spin in your cycle and in your psyche. Now you're like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whenever we get to those points, that's when we have to be strong enough to say, I need some assistance on this one. That's a big issue is I'll go back to it is we're afraid to ask for help. And a lot of us don't even know that we need it. We walk around undiagnosed. I sit down and I
Facts.
think about that sometimes. How many people do I walk past on a daily that are walking around undiagnosed schizophrenic, undiagnosed bipolar, undiagnosed this or that? You never know, and until something happens, and then you will know. But I like if I'm around some people, I'm going to check on them. Hey, how you doing? Like you said to me,
Facts.
brothers check on brothers, man. And hey, bro, you good? I know you. Are you really good? Stuff like that, because sometimes when you double check with somebody, that's all it takes for them to really come out and admit it. I've done that with people before. Hey, bro, you good? Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm fine. Are you sure? Well, then there's the end right there. As soon as they say that, well, then, that's when it started to come, and they really going through some stuff. But a
Yep.
lot of times that initial thought, that initial tip, they'll say no. I know I will. But if you press a little bit, I'll eventually come out and say something. So we have to be more in tune with our mental health. This is something that everyone has to do. It's not a crazy person issue. It's a everybody issue. Everybody deals with it in some way, shape, or form, and we can't put it in this compartment to where it's just for crazy people, because that's the thing that keeps everybody away from dealing with their mental health issues, for the bad stigma that comes with it. Markrina says one cannot seclude ourselves, need to talk, read Bible, and meditate. Absolutely, Markrina. That's why I say when I go through my depression, it usually takes me about 3 days to shake it off. And those 3 days consist of, me getting with God, me praying, me meditating, and all of that, and it brings me up out of my funk or whatever I'm going through. And you're absolutely 100% secluding yourself, isolating yourself from everybody. That's what the enemy wants you to do. He wants you to isolate yourself from everybody so that he can start to deal with you. And that's one of the big things. That's the spiritual aspect of it that a lot of people don't add to the therapy, because I understand that the enemy likes to separate you from everybody, get you alone, and just start dealing with your mind and
Teach,
telling
D
you
Mac,
all of those
teach, D.
negative things. And so when we get in those isolations, that's when he really starts working with us. So good point. Good point, Mark.
Man, D. Let me say something on that. And a lot of people think that this is just so easy to do, or it's just something that happens to some people. I would like to present a few Bible narratives. There was a man
Mhm.
by the name of Elijah, and Elijah
Yeah.
had just got through battling Jezebel and her prophets. But after
Mhm.
God did what he did, Jezebel said she was going to kill him. Elijah went 300 and something miles in 3 days. That meant he was moving. He never
Yeah.
slept. So much anxiety and panic attacks had gripped him that he was moving. Then he found a cave and hid himself inside the cave. And God had to come speak, watch this, through a small voice. It couldn't be
Yeah.
loud, it couldn't be screaming, it couldn't be boisterous. It was a small voice. But if you think that's something, D Mac, there was a young man by the name of Jesus Christ, 33-year-old, knew he had to die for the sin of the world. He went into a garden called Gethsemane, and the depression and the anxiety was so bad. It said his sweat began to fall like drops of blood. That means he was
Yeah.
going to God hard for something that he couldn't shake or something that he couldn't
Mhm.
overcome. Go ahead, Doc.
And that's it. That's it. Everybody goes through it, and that's the point. It's it. We need to take the stigma off of mental health issues. We really do, because that hurts more than it helps. So many people are scared to come forth and say, "I have a problem." We all have problems. If Jesus had his struggles, who are we? Who are we? If he's had his struggles, we're all going. That's why he came here in the flesh, so he could go through all of this stuff to prove that we can do it. We can make it through if we have his Holy Spirit dwelling in us. So that's part of my, I guess I call it my conditioning, to get myself up out of that funk. Um, and I
What
don't know, man.
D? What can people do to help their situation? There are a lot of people in a very bad situation, man. Economically, environment wise, a lot of it. See, an attack will get you, and people. The Bible calls it a stronghold. Some people
Yeah,
cannot deal with that. It takes time to realize what's going on. What I've learned years ago, man. I start journaling. I don't even
yeah,
know
oh
why. I
yeah,
like to write, man. I start journaling.
yeah,
Then what I did
yeah.
a couple of years ago, I started a blog. You have to
Mhm.
create channels to other people hear your voice. If not, that's
That's
why the
it.
cemetery is full. Go ahead.
This what we're doing now is therapeutic. This is it's a way to express yourself. It's a way to express your thoughts and all of those things like that. And if you can help somebody in doing so, then that's what makes it 100% better. But this is definitely therapeutic. Talking, people have to get stuff out, and I'm, like I said, I'm the type of person, I get hard-headed and don't want to talk and shut down. But at some point you have to realize that one of the most important things to do is to talk, because communication sends those
Facts.
waves and those frequencies
Facts.
between us. We are antennas, and we accept, I mean, we receive and we give off these waves. And so if you're not around people to receive those communications, then you're going to be lacking something.
And that's the
Yeah.
whole. That's the whole key, man. Is that individuals are not cognitive of enough what some people go through. Watch this.
Yeah.
Some people victimize you, and they don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah.
Go to work. Go to work, and your boss is just every 5 minutes on your head. Just every
Hmm.
5 minutes, it's a problem. Believe it or not, the patterns that are being suggested over a period of time through that level of communication is going to begin to alter something here. There are some people do it on purpose because they want you to quit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've dealt with that. So I tried not to speak bad about military service. I have respect for the service, but one thing I will say about being in Iraq and being at war, a lot of our PTSD didn't come from the enemy. A lot of our depression and stuff like that didn't come from battling the enemy. It was internal battles with our own people, with superiors over us who abused their power, you know, females being sexually assaulted. All of these things are happening overseas while we're trying to fight a war. We're supposed to be over there together fighting a war against these other people, but yet still we have an internal war with our own people. And that's where most people's trust issues come from, especially far as the military, because they understand that a lot of our battles was against our own people.
You're right, D. And the reason I say you're right, I'm gonna tell a story right quick. The police departments, their officers go through the same thing. Could you imagine
Absolutely.
having to see dead bodies with homicides and all this stuff that's out of control, or police officers, females, being accosted and assaulted by gangbangers? One year, I was going to go off on disability, right? So they
Yeah.
sent me to this doctor in Beverly Hills. I said, okay, I'm going to a doctor in Beverly Hills. I'm cool. I got a white doctor in Beverly Hills, a black man, right? So I go up
Yeah.
in the office and this lady come in clenching her purse. And she just
Wow.
sitting there frantically. I'm like, what's wrong with her? LAPD came in. But no, before they came in, the doctor came and said, Mr. Johnson, I thought he was calling me to come in the room. He said, don't move. Whatever you do, don't move. She's suffering from something because she got raped and assaulted by an African American male. And when
Um,
LAPD came in, they took her purse, and there was her weapon.
wow. Wow.
Do you see how serious this is? And people are playing with it from what someone else did to her, I could have paid for.
Absolutely.
Man,
That's the reality of it, because her reality is now that every black man is harmful to her. And that is a reality to that woman, because of people don't realize how strong the mind is. The mind is so strong that it'll manifest actual things. And people don't understand how powerful that is, especially when it comes to trauma. So in this woman's mind, every black man is harmful. And that's just the power of the psyche.
and that's why once it's damaged, unless you say, like Marquina said, you know God, it's almost a path of no return. Some people don't come back. That's why
Yeah.
if you go into the mental hospitals, you see them doing all this stuff, they can't come back. They're too far gone. The psychosis and the mental abuse have been so much, they're gone. You ever see a person on the corner just dancing and talking to himself and
Mhm.
just doing all this type of stuff, and you try to say something to him, he just look at you and start back again, he's gone.
Yeah.
Either PCP, Sherm, bad weed, something got to him, and he's lost it. He's done. Why?
Yeah.
Because watch this. It wasn't the drugs. There was something already in the mind that had been altered. The drugs were just the things that pushed it over.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Drugs is just a underlying symptom of something else. And to go back to what you were saying about the police, because that's a great point, and this is something that I brought up to a friend of mine one time. We were having a conversation about police brutality, and I had to let him know, look, a lot of these police officers are suffering from PTSD because of the traumatic things that they see on a daily basis. They are, everybody likes to associate PTSD with military, but no, that's anybody who suffers from a traumatic event that changes their perception of reality. And these police officers deal with this on a daily basis. Paramedics deal with it on a daily basis. Anybody in the emergency room, they're going to deal with this on a daily basis. And there's going to be some effects from it. So these police officers are dealing with this stuff. And once again, it's the same thing as in the military. If they come up with mental health issues, then they're going to be not considered for their promotion and things like that. And so Macrina says, talk to someone who can give both types of advice. The life we live today, being fast, is that people live in a very depraved world with stress and tribulation, no way to quell their situation. Yes,
She had a
talking to somebody is
continuation with it.
key. Yeah, talking to somebody is key. She said some of us look for wrong solutions. We absolutely do. And that's where the self medication comes in. That's not a good solution to the issue. It's a temporary fix, and it only compounds the issue once you come down off your high or you're drunk. So
Let me ask you a
you're
question,
absolutely
D.
right. Yeah,
Should preachers, pastors, and leaders be trained in mental health? What do you think?
absolutely. 100%. One of the biggest problems I had when I came home was that when I started going back to church, um, you know, I couldn't even really listen to the sermon because I was looking at the exits. I was checking to see if anybody was coming through my blind spot, and I couldn't even concentrate on the service because I was dealing with all of these things. And there's a lot of ex-soldiers in our ministry, but there was nobody there to talk about this stuff to, and now it's being implemented in the ministry because they see the need. But when I came back from Iraq, man, nobody really understood what I was going through, man. And I would, go to church, but I was so distracted by my thoughts and my mind and the paranoia and stuff. I couldn't listen to the word.
That's
So I
because
feel like,
most that's because most preachers and most pastors have been skilled in what we call homiletics, the art of preaching,
yeah,
or
yeah,
hermeneutics, the art of
yeah,
biblical interpretation. But they have
exactly.
not been schooled in what Jesus dealt with, because Jesus said he came to heal the sick and bind the brokenhearted. Right? Those who are bind or bound, they're being held by satanic oppression. And if you don't know how, you can call as many, whatever as you want, but you have to get to the root of what those individuals are doing. This is what Jesus did as the master. This is what he did as the servant. So much power, he automatically knew what the issue was. The Bible says, I believe in Matthew, when he got off the ship, there was a man possessed with demons, and that man ran to him and fell down and started worshiping him. Jesus didn't say anything to the man because he did what he was supposed to do. He fell down and worshiped. But then he spoke to the demon. He said, "What is thy name?" He said, "Watch this." And this is what individuals today don't know how to identify. What type of mental health is going on? What are they suffering? What's the issue? People are calling PTSD bipolar because they're not trained. So they're not effective when it comes to God's people.
Yeah. When I worked with the the youth, that was one of the biggest things that always brought their breakthrough whenever we got to what the core issue was. And that only came whenever they had family therapy and when they were able to sit down with their parents and actually voice what was going on with them. That's when those kids got their breakthrough. That's when they were able to better their lives and repair some of the issues going on in their lives, but it wasn't until they dealt with that core issue.
That's what I'm saying, Doc. As a youth pastor, you heard somebody say I was a youth pastor before I became a pastor, right? You know how many kids contemplated suicide and their parents are in church giving big dollars, praising God, worshiping, shouting, dancing, but that kid is sitting in the back of the church or over in the corner talking about suicide. Do you know how many calls I got like that, man? Do you know how many
Yeah,
times I had to minister to people? Had nothing to do with church. It had something with a girl making a bad decision in a relationship and her heart is broken now behind a knucklehead Negro. It's
yeah.
all those little things like that. Go ahead, D. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you good because that's a great point. We've seen reports of where somebody's actually come up in churches shooting because of
Facts.
situation.
Facts.
So how messed up in your mind do you have to be to go up into a church and decide you want to kill somebody? What's the kid's name? Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof down in South Carolina.
Facts.
This kid went and sat in the Bible study and listened to them, and then afterwards he comes out and kills 9 people. This is what I'm talking about right here, because um we want to help everybody. We want to be all inclusive and let everybody in when we have our church services and stuff like that. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of who's coming into your sanctuary. And that's a reality in
Facts.
today. You have to be mindful of who's coming into your sanctuary because you don't know this person's reasoning for being there. And that's just a reality today. I remember I was an usher for a while, and that was one of my biggest concerns. And one of the main reasons I became an usher is because, I wanted the church to be secure. I didn't want people to feel like, if something happened and somebody came in there, that nobody was going to do anything and be caught off guard.
I used to have a security officer who was my armor bearer also, right? And we discussed it, and he didn't need a gun. But what he needed to be able to do was discern spirits.
Yeah,
Try the spirit and see
yeah,
if the spirit be by the word of God. So that was his thing. That's why he went in prayer. He said, "Bishop, I'm going to the park to pray." If I was about to minister or preach, he would always come up to the front on my right side to make sure that there were no demon elements. Because if you say demon, people think you crazy. No, brother.
Yeah.
No, sister. Demons are real, and that's what individuals carry with them. People have past demons from years ago, and they don't even know what they're dealing with. Don't know it. But guess
Yeah.
what? Demons are generational. So then what I used to do, when he and I talked, he said, I got it. And I didn't have to say anything after that. People say, well, why do you need security? He's not here to beat somebody up or stop something. He's here as a projector in the reality of spiritual or demon warfare, because that's what it takes. Everything that goes in the mind, I don't care if you're mental health, bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD, it's all something that has to deal with a spirit that has been placed on you. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Absolutely. We know about the man who had many legions in him, and so this is not a new thing, nothing new under the sun. Let's see, Markarina said we are imperfect, but parents need to be able to communicate with their kids. And if we can't do so, we're just spinning top in mud.
That's right.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
relationships and marriages. She's 100% right.
Yep. Yep, because when I was dealing with those children, that was the biggest issue with most of them was communication. They didn't have good lines of communication with their parents, or their parents disregarded everything they said, and they didn't really get to express themselves. So it took them coming to that program and going through to get that breakthrough with their parents. And so parents are so busy, we get so caught up in our life and our occupations and trying to do what we think is providing for our family when we're providing financially, but we are falling short in other areas. And we
Yes.
can't allow money to raise our children.
Yes. And that's because, watch this. Hold on, go ahead, talk for a minute, D. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, we can't allow money to raise our children because that's going to first of all give them a sense of entitlement, and they're not going to have any respect for when you do try to say something to them, because they're going to be like, well, where was you at all this time, and I'm like, um, I can see that. I can see
Right.
that because if you don't put the time and effort in with your children, they're not going to have that respect for you. They're not going to have that reverence for you as a parent, because you're allowing social media and money to raise them.
Yeah, man, because watch this, D. We didn't have this years ago. We didn't have it until we had latchkey kids to where the mom
Yeah,
or the dad had to work. Nobody was at home. Now everybody has a cell phone. There's no communication. There's no understanding. Everybody's separated. And so who knows what who's going through? Who knows who victimized who? Who knows who? No one knows. Why? Because we're all, like the Bible says, come from among them and be ye separated to the Lord. We're all consumed with the world.
yeah. And this goes back to why mental health is put on the back burner, because that means once again somebody's going to be have to be held accountable,
Facts.
because these traumatic events aren't coming from nowhere.
Right.
They're not just happening out of nowhere.
That's right.
Somebody is doing something to somebody
Yes,
in
sir.
most cases to cause these traumatic events to come on.
Yes, sir.
And if you start dealing with the mental health, you're going to have to deal with that person who committed that act against them.
Yes.
And
What?
especially, oh, go ahead.
No, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, especially dealing with things like child molestation and things
Yes.
like that, because a
Facts.
lot of times they don't want to out who did it to them, because it
Exactly.
may be a family member that they don't want to start nothing with. So a
Facts.
lot of times a child will go through this their whole entire life
Yes.
because they don't want to start no trouble in the family or split the family up, and
Facts.
that's enormous pressure for a child or even a grown person.
Facts. And when they do, watch this. It's 20 or 30 years later. Because watch this.
Yes.
That the amount of pressure for all that time is building up. So guess what happens now? That individual goes to get married or goes to do things which are conducive, and there's a broken home and a broken relationship. Now children are dealing with two people who are talking about divorce. The husband never knew what happened, but the
Yeah.
wife does what happened to her, and guess what? They're done. And that's because all of a lack of communication.
Yeah, because we come into situations and we bring our baggage, and a lot of time that baggage is hidden.
Yes,
You're gonna give off your best representation of yourself first,
facts.
and so certain baggage you're gonna hide.
Yes,
And then when that baggage starts to come out, people are going, "Oh, I didn't know this about you. Well, you changed."
facts.
No, I didn't change. I just didn't show you that initially. And
Exactly.
that's why I say people need to take some real time before deciding to get together and get married, and really see both sides of a person before they make that decision.
But again, the church, the community, those things have to be taught. And if they're
Mm,
not, we see what's going on with the war online now. So you have to ask yourself, how many of those people are really dealing with some psychological issues
yeah.
that they're making burners accounts and acting like gangsters, or they're acting like this. And what that does, it causes individuals to act out of character, and that's not really their character. I told somebody this the other day. A person who points the finger at you the most, they're hiding something in their life that they don't want you to know about. So what I have to do is place it on somebody else.
I got another variant of that. When you point the finger at somebody, you got three pointing back at you. That's something that I've always said. Every time you point the finger at somebody, you got three pointing back at you.
But
So
it
you're
all,
three times more
yes,
accountable than I am.
but it all goes back to what I want people to think. It
Yeah.
all goes back to my narrative that I need to create. So, because what this does, if I can cause you to be confused, if I can cause you to be stressed out, I can cause you these things, I can actually cause you to lose your mind. Watch this. People don't believe mind control is real.
Oh yeah.
If you go over to certain African countries, they deal with voodoo and they deal with
Yes.
other things that where individuals never have to touch you. And watch this.
Hmm.
You can take on the character if you understand where I'm going. You can
Yeah.
take on the character that's being placed on you. All right?
Yeah.
Someone said, well, you got to believe in it. Well, what's stopping a person if it's constantly put in front of them?
Yep. Um. Yeah. That's a deep thing right there. That's a deep thing right there. I've seen many things in the spiritual realm like that. And I don't think you don't have to believe in it. You don't have to believe in it, but
Facts.
it is a reality because the word even speaks where Saul went to a witch doctor.
Facts.
So we do have these witch doctors out here. We have witches out here, and they be sitting up in the church.
Come on,
They will
Doc. You
sit up.
better
They will
preach.
sit up in your church. That's why when you was talking about having discernment of spirits, that's important for your security team or your ushers to have, because there's actual witches sitting up in your church services casting spells throughout your whole service. And these are the things that we have to get an understanding of,
Yes.
because this is real spiritual warfare,
Yes.
and the enemy is coming. He's playing hardball in these last days. So
Remember
we
when
have to step our game up too. And mental health is one of those ways that he gets to us.
remember when we first met and I start talking. I say, D, don't be surprised if people realize that we're becoming friends and yoked up in the spirit. If you get a call, if you get a text, if you get an inbox, why? Because the devil needs to stop the true voice. That's why the Bible says some would rather believe a lie than the truth. Why? Because this, you said it earlier. In order for me to capture your mind, I got to separate you. If I can't separate you, then I can't overtake you.
That's it. That's it. Because power in numbers. Power in numbers. That's why it's good to not forsake the assembly of the brethren. And that's another scripture that I start to tell myself when I start isolating. Man, you can't do this, man. And it's real bad. I think I told you this earlier. It's real bad to lay there and be like, you got to get up.
Right.
And 30 minutes later, you're still laying there. The enemy wants to get you separated. He wants to get you by yourself because your brothers are going to pour into your spirit. Your brothers are going to feed you. They're going to motivate you to get up. He don't want that.
And that's why Jesus said, watch this. Jesus said this. And one can chase 1,000. Two can put 10,000 to a flight. So watch this. God's divine number of two represents unity and strength. So in order for Satan to take you, his narrative, watch this. We got both of us on the same screen, but we have the same topic. In order to watch this, in order for the topic to change, someone needs to start typing something or doing something in the room that causes us to disagree. Now that
Yeah.
disagree becomes a fallout. Now there's a separation.
Yep. Yep.
So
And that's just
easy.
one trick of the enemy, man. He's always going to try to divide the people, especially when people are coming together in unity and harmony. Those are two things that he can't stand. And he's going to attack it at every turn
Right.
because he knows when two or more agree, God is right there in the midst.
Facts.
So he tried to
Facts.
keep us from agreeing at every turn. So Marquina says that's why I say the person needs to know whom to speak to get that help because the person helping need to show direction.
Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't go and talk to somebody who don't know anything about cars if I got car issues. I need to know that this person know how to fix a car and know how to get it running from scratch before I go to them and ask them a question about my car. And that's the same thing about my health. I'm not going to go to somebody who don't understand what I'm going through or, you know, and I'll say, people go to school and they get educated to be therapists and counselors and they do a very good job. But I would rather sit down and talk to another veteran. That's who I'm comfortable talking to.
Yes.
You know,
Facts.
it took months for me to open up to my therapist. I can sit down with a veteran and tell him everything that I told the therapist in 30 minutes.
Facts.
Just because of that connection that we have as soldiers and that understanding we have as soldiers. Um, so that's very important to have the right person to talk to, Marquina. That's a great point.
Yep, to show direction, and that's critical. Watch this. Galatians talks about this when Paul is ministering. He said, "Who, O Galatians, who have bewitched you,
Yeah,
that you should turn away from the truth?" There are some people who have hatred towards you in your
yes,
own church. There's
yes,
some people in your own family who can't stand you. They
yes,
hate you. And what that does, it causes a sense of jealousy and a sense of, I need to destroy you. And what
yeah,
happens is the only way you can destroy a person is isolate them.
that's
And if
it.
you isolate them, now they're on an island by themselves. Guess what? Now they're going to run. Now they're going to
Yeah,
trip. But everyone else around does not understand because B is not telling C, I isolated them.
yeah,
You got it?
yeah. It's a
What
it's
is
a hard thing, man. This whole mental health thing is um, it's it needs to be well, we can sit here and say all day long what it needs to be, but until it really gets the until it really gets the attention that it deserves, we're gonna have more things like this. And I wonder if Naomi Osaka wasn't so high um up in the food chain, would they have taken it serious?
No, I don't think
If
so,
she,
D.
I
Watch.
think it's because if she was like number 10 or something like that in the world, it would have just been one of those byline stories. But
Yeah.
because she's the number two, number one player in the world, and she jeopardized her career, that's another thing. They say that she jeopardized her career. What's more important, her mental health or the endorsements and all of the entertainment that she brings?
It all depends on the narrative of those who are supporting her. Watch what Karina said. I'm gonna tell you, this is true, because common sense isn't always common.
Yeah. If it was common, everybody have it.
So thus, it depends on the narrative of the individual who's either trying to help you or destroy you, and that's what most people can't figure out. That's why the
Yeah.
Bible says, "Lean not to your own understanding."
Yeah, I noticed that Nike are pretty decent about supporting the athletes that they deal with when it comes to things. They supported Colin Kaepernick. Yeah, they
Yes,
supported Colin Kaepernick and now this with Naomi Osaka. And like I said before, came out in support for her before the French Open did. And their whole thing with her is about money, and her performance
facts.
is what's going to generate the money. But
Facts.
they have enough sense to know that if she's not mentally sound, she's going to destroy her brand if she goes out here and starts doing crazy stuff because she didn't deal with her mental health. And Nike had enough forethought to be like, hey, we're going to make sure that she's square. So I commend Nike for that.
My sister in law used to say something by when we were preaching, we were young. She would say, "It's hard to hit a moving target." That's why
Yeah.
what I've learned is you can't tell all your business, you can't tell your friends, you can't tell certain things because that's what the enemy needs. It's called sabotage through strongholds. You just
Yeah.
can't do it. So then you have to move and you have to operate in silence. That's what the Bible says. Take off the spirit of heaviness and put on the garment of praise. So then that means someone can subject you to heaviness. It's a spirit. But he said, put on the garment of praise. You want me to show that video, D?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, all righty.
When I was a kid, and at the age of 22, I fulfilled my dream. The problem with that is there's so many things thrown at us at a young age. When you make it, you have so much money, you have so much freedom, you can do whatever you want. And instead of me being able to deal with those things, I just held it all in and I was a ticking time bomb.
I'm Jerry Stackhouse. I spent my off-season traveling around the country meeting with athletes, visiting their local communities and talking about issues that are important to them and affect all of us. I'm here in New York City to meet Brandon Marshall. Brandon has just begun his 12th season in the NFL, his first with the New York Giants. We're here to discuss how he plans to use his experience to overcome cultural stigmas surrounding mental illness.
Every relationship in my life, friends, family, was dysfunctional. The best way I can describe it, I was depressed, and I didn't know it. It was no longer, Brandon can handle it. I knew I needed help. And it wasn't until I was at McLean Hospital I realized, I turned into a totally different person. Borderline personality disorder is what I was diagnosed with, AKA BPD.
Individuals suffering from borderline personality disorder often are highly sensitive to emotional triggers. And once they are triggered, they go from 0 to 60, that feeling. And regulating that back down is really difficult for them.
It was just how I kind of grew up, the way we learned how to deal with our emotions and cope with different stresses, how to communicate, it was all volatile. And a minority community, a lot of our folks say that there's nothing wrong with us, right? We don't believe in mental health.
We do not do a good job of socializing our kids to check in on their emotional wellness. And frankly, we send messages like, tough it out. As these kids one day become adults, they don't have tools to necessarily recognize when they're having a mental health issue, nor do we give them permission to potentially ask for help.
My entire life, I was kind of taught to mask pain, but I had to do it. I had to be able to say, you know what, you're not the strongest man in the world. And McLean Hospital turned into my football field, and those books were my playbook, and the library was my locker room.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah, see, what I've learned, man, I try to send Satan, God sends Satan to strong people. And let me tell you why I learned this. What Satan needs is for God to say your name. He says, have you considered my servant Job? So what the enemy does not understand, I've learned now not to mention certain people's name because I know they're going to hear something or something's going to be said that's not conducive. So what I do now, like this show and other things, the more I mention somebody's name, the more I talk about them, it's just a matter of time that individuals get a call, something happens to where they hear a different narrative. Why?
Yeah.
I tell people I sent them.
Yeah. That's it. Marquita said that's so deep. Yeah. Yeah, because that video right there, it says so much to me. That's why I was shaking my head, man, because everything that he was saying, I've lived it. I've lived it and still living it.
Facts.
Day by day. But I have the true and living God, man. So I'm gonna be all right regardless
Yes,
of
sir.
my struggles.
Yes,
And I
sir.
know that, and that's what keeps me from going off the deep end at
Yes,
times.
sir.
So,
Yeah,
um,
but I knew it was something. That's why I start sending you the Word of God. I start sending you Scripture. I start sending you encouraging things, and you have to. And this is what I'm saying. Most people don't operate in the spirit of discernment, and
Yeah.
because they don't know from truth from false. Listen at Matthew chapter 13, verse 10, where the disciples asked Jesus, "Why do you talk to them in parables?" Jesus said, "Because they hear, but yet they can't hear. They
Uh-huh.
see, but yet they can't see." Meaning that the things of God are not based on our physical attributes. They're based on what goes on in the spirit. So God, watch what he says now. Then Jesus tells the disciples, "It is given for you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God." So then God only speaks to us out in his word. And those mysteries are revealed so you and I can operate in the spirit realm where Satan can attack. But
Yes.
when we try to operate in our flesh, we end up allowing these things to overcome us, and we become a victim of our own lack of faith.
And that's why therapy and the church are so separated, because they want to try to separate it and make it a worldly thing when actually they are one and the same, and they're absolutely connected.
That's why I asked you that question. Should pastors be taught?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna tell you why. Let's say you got a person who's thinking about suicide, and yet everyone has been turned against that individual or those individuals because it happens every day, especially
Yeah.
with kids.
Yeah.
He goes to the pastor, and the pastor says, "I'm gonna lay hands on him and pray the prayer of faith." Yet the person is not a believer. But the Bible does say that yeah, we can do it, and whatever we bound will be bound. But then that person leaves out, and then in Matthew also it says that the birds did what? Took it away from him. So now
Yeah.
that person is out there all alone, all right, because they've been separated from family, friends, everybody. So they're all alone. So guess what happens now? Now it becomes, oh, something happened. That individual did something. They wanted to commit suicide. No, that's not what happened. What happened was the attack of Satan through separation caused a level. People ain't getting it, Doc.
Well, they're going to get it because this is opening up the conversation. And that's the whole point, is to start a dialogue every opportunity we can so that people
Yes.
can sweep it under the rug anymore.
Yes. Yes.
It's not a taboo thing to talk about it anymore. This is a common everyday thing. And the more we put it out there and the more we talk about it, the more people are going to get confidence because they're
Yes.
seeing that it's not just them anymore.
Yes.
And so I'm just glad that we had an opportunity to talk about this and really shine a light on it.
Yes. See, when we come into the truth, we have to walk in the truth. And that's a problem. A lot of people come into the truth and they don't even really understand what they're supposed to do. It's a very easy thing to trust people and not trust God.
Yeah.
The biggest hurt comes from trusting man, never God, because his love constrains us. So because we're hurt by man when man does something, we're disappointed. And disappointment causes failure. Failure causes injury. Then that same injury turns around and can cause injury to someone else. Why? Because we don't really know what we're dealing with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I deal with people accordingly. I approach with caution, and I don't press too much, and but it's prevalent in today society. The more stuff that we've got coming at us, the more we're going to have mental health issues. You look at the time that we're living in, and when we was coming up, we had ironclad things
Mm-hmm.
because we had somebody that made sure that we got
Right.
it before we moved on to the next thing. Today, things move so fast, you don't have time to make sure that somebody got something down. You got to move on to the next thing. And
Yes.
so they don't really have like a confidence in what they're doing
Yes.
because, you just went through it so fast and just skimmed over the top of it so fast. And so, people don't have that confidence in themselves anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was going through my medics training, and most of the problems with medics is that they second guess themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
had absolutely no confidence, even though they would sit there, and they were taught the same instructions
Yes.
to do the job. they didn't have the confidence in themselves. And
Yes.
so when it came time to perform, they stopped and they froze and they, was contemplating. They were indecisive. But that
Mm-hmm.
was the biggest issue.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Markrina says, because Big J, the person comes to you, we need to listen, not interject. Let them release their voice. Yes, yes.
Facts.
That was one of the most effective tools that I had for new kids that was coming
Mm-hmm.
in the program.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody would try to go up to them and talk and try to get them to open up. I wouldn't say anything. I was
Facts.
just sitting there and be quiet, and I would let them say something to me first. Because
There's
if they initiate the conversation, then that means that they've let down some type of guard with me.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes
Facts.
that comes through me not saying anything at all.
Right. And I know you know this, D. That's what therapists do. There's a book out called Hung by the Tongue. And when a
Uh-huh.
therapist first meets you, you meet them, they just let you talk. Why? Because they're profiling you. They want to
Yep.
see what the issue probably is. Because if I let you talk for 30 minutes, you're gonna say what the issue is.
Yep. Absolutely.
Somewhere in there. You understand? So now
Yeah.
what they do, they take that information and they start to build your records or your profile. So
Yep.
now they talk to you before they even speak. The first thing they ask you, what can I do for you today?
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
it's contradictory to what you said last week, you
That's
understand?
it. That's it. And that's why that goes back to journaling. When you was talking about journaling,
Yes.
because I went back and I looked through some of my journals and I was like, man, I was in a dark spot right there. Or I'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
man, that was very insightful right there. I
Right.
wonder what I was doing that day.
Right.
This gives me reference points. And so I have an understanding that, even though I'm going through something right now, I've been through something before. And those journals are reference points throughout my life of things that I've experienced and overcame. And so that's why it's so important to journal.
And those same things, man, can save your life. If you
Yes.
watch this, if you have a person who's used to lying on you or doing whatever, and you journal that, and let's say you got something for 3 or 4 years ago, that
Yeah.
journal can save your life. I know that for a fact, Doc.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because people lie.
Absolutely.
And if you take that
Absolutely.
journal and you write a symposium of information that points to where this is coming from, guess what that does? It puts
Yeah.
doubt now in the eyes of the individual or Satan who's claiming certain things.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
To just come
Absolutely.
off the top of the dome and you don't have anything that express where this came from or what went on, you might as well forget it, man.
Yeah.
Tell him to throw the key away.
That's it. That's it. Man, and let's see. She said having trust is a big fact. Well, see, that's a big thing with me because when I first came home, yeah, my trust was at a zero for anybody. And the first therapist that I had was actually Middle Eastern, and so that kind of I didn't understand that. I was like, is this a tactic or something? Because I just came from the Middle East, fighting somebody that looks like this person and you're going to make what made you think that that was a good idea to make this person my counselor. But
Mm-hmm.
then later I found out that it was a desensitization thing that they were
To get
doing.
you over that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, okay, now in hindsight I understand, but at first I was drawn back, I was offended, I went through so many different emotions because I was like, why would you put this person who looked like the people I was fighting in front of me? But that was part of my therapy. So
Watch this, D. Most therapists find it hard until they know you to trust you
yeah.
themselves because
Yes.
they have to profile you and see what's going on. Because there's so many people who bring things that are not correct. But if you have a 20-year, 15-year of writing and your journal, and that individual reads that and starts to put the connections together and begins to understand it, it creates a whole different system or a whole different level between them and the psychiatrist and yourself. It makes a big difference. But if you just coming off the wind and say somebody beat me up, this happened, no. Now they got to go through months of finding out why. What did you do? What was this? What did you do wrong? But if you have information suggesting that this has been a period of time, it puts you in a whole different perspective.
Absolutely.
You have to be smart.
Absolutely. Having
Now
that
you
goes.
still got to deal with this what's going on here, but at least you have leverage now.
Yeah, and that definitely goes back to the building rapport, having that rapport.
Facts. Facts. All right, I'm done. Big D, it's on you, man.
Well, my last thing I want to say is that on this mental health issue is listen to people when they say things. Listen to or pay attention to their behavior if they're not acting like themselves. Just all of the little stuff. Don't just gloss over it, because your paying attention in that moment can be the difference between somebody's life and death. Um, I'm a big advocate for mental health. I always will be, because this is what's going to help us to turn this country back around, is addressing mental health and dealing with it. Do you realize how many presidents we've had that have been like, if they would have been diagnosed, they would have been schizophrenics, bipolar, so many different things. These are sitting presidents that we've had.
Yeah.
So
Donald Trump.
yeah, absolutely. So, this is going to be a big instrument in turning this country around, is
Yes.
dealing with our mental health
Yes.
issue. And
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to every mental health officer or official or anybody who works in that field, because you have a very important job, and it's a very it's not a rewarding job. You get a
Facts.
lot of the brunt of everything that a person deal with, and sometimes people, if you're an empath, you carry that load or that burden
That's
with you.
right.
So that's off to
Oh my
all
God,
mental health
D.
people. Um, yeah,
Do
yeah,
you know what you just said? And that a lot of people don't understand empath. So if so oh D, man, you just open up another can. Because empaths usually, and what they do operate is through the spirit of discernment. When they
yeah,
walk in a room, they can feel something. Watch
yeah,
this. I've been in situations where I said things that somebody else said to a person, and they look at me like, "You, how you know?" Because I hear
yeah,
the person. I hear the person. Yet you're standing here,
yeah,
and, and,
yeah,
and and God gives that spirit because one day He knew you were gonna be able. What this? What did Jesus have? Discernment, but it was like almost like empath. When Jesus was against the people who came against him for blaspheming, and he moved away from them, and they couldn't see him. You got to have it. I'm telling you, I just don't watch when things change. I pray about it, and God will give
yeah,
me what's going on. You know how many
yeah.
times God has saved my life?
Many, numerous.
And you
Well,
got people looking like, how did he know? What went on? I don't know nothing. That's God not going to let you over. Go ahead and keep on. But one day it's all going to change.
Marquina said, I enjoyed. Thank you for the time to communicate. Absolutely. Thank you always for being here, Marquina. We love your support. We love you, and everybody else that tunes in and supports us. This is a very important topic. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I appreciate you giving me the floor to be able to talk about it.
All right. No, we appreciate you too, man. Appreciate you getting back with us. I feel one of the largest devices of Satan is that Cash App thing. Because what people do, no, seriously, if they're money hungry, if they're struggling, and watch this, the enemy uses finances. And if he can
Yeah,
use finances for someone, that Cash App thing to me is of Satan. We put it on here for the right use, but people use it. Watch what people do. People figure you out if you're in need. Do you need something? Then this go, oh, I'm a Cash App you something. You all right? That's a
yeah,
devil's tool.
yeah,
I've seen it too many times.
absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, D. Go ahead.
I just wanted, this is turning the page a little bit. I just wanted to give a shout out and acknowledgement to Brittany Griner. She got the Western Conference Player of the Week, and Benisha Laney, she got Eastern Conference Player of the Week. So I want to give a shout out and a salute to those ladies for really putting in their game.
All right, we're gonna have to start doing more shows on that. Let's get some.
Absolutely.
I'll get some videos and, well, man, I'm not worried about numbers, D. I'm simply worried about telling the truth and giving the expression that helps, as Marquina said, change people's life through true communication, not to where we
Absolutely.
hurt anyone or try to subjugate to someone to something based on their narrative. I'm not interested. So we want to say thank everyone for being on tonight. Those who are going to watch the video later, we truly appreciate you. You are amazing. And you know what I'm going to say. Be the best, and the best you will become. Don't change for anything in this world. God made you who you are. Keep being that person. All right? Until next time, Big D, Marquina, and family. Have a blessed day.